Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Meta AI is the personal AI to help you with whatever you need. Plus, it meets you where you are. Not only is Meta AI now an app, but it's also on the apps you already know and love: Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. Plus the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. It's easy to access wherever you are. So whether you're talking or texting, Meta AI is convenient to use throughout your day. Experience our newest AI that's tailored to you by downloading the Meta AI app. Try the Meta AI app today on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
All right, Duke fans, welcome to episode 734 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans, Donald Wine. We are here as we are just days away from the NBA draft, and this is yet another one of our draft preview episodes with Jay Bilas. And this has just been a ton of fun, Donald, having Jay and getting to talk about each one of these guys. And today we're going to talk about Kon Kneuppel, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think it's funny that we had like 5 guys that are eligible for this draft. That means we got to spend a lot of time with Jay Bilas, which I appreciate. If it was just 1 or 2, our time would be cut short. But the fact that our guys are starting 5 from last year essentially is in the NBA draft and primed to be drafted gives us a lot of time to explain it. Cons up, which I think, Jason, this conversation a year ago would have been very different than the one we're about to have.
Yeah, Kon Kneuppel had a remarkable year as a Duke Blue Devil, as functionally the Robin to Cooper Flagg's Batman. And I don't know that anyone at this time a year ago expected that to be the case, expected him to be as good as he was, expected him to lead the team and win the ACC tournament MVP. I mean, my goodness. And now, and by the way, Kon's draft stock, like, at the start of last summer, I don't know that he had very much draft stock. Like, dude was just a shooter. And then, like, more and more of his game developed. People saw more and more of what he could do. It was like, oh, yeah, he looks like he could be a one and done. Oh, yeah, he looks like he could be a lottery pick. And now here we are. And we're about to talk to Jay about whether or not Kon's going to go in the top 5 in the NBA draft. It's been really impressive. The way the world has recognized his talents.
You mentioned the fact that he was the Robin to Cooper Flagg's Batman. Of course, we'll talk about Cooper Flagg on the final draft preview episode. But I will say, in this particular metaverse here, Robin had the keys to the Batmobile sometimes. So he was asked to drive the Batmobile at different times during the season. And boy, that man could drive like an F1 driver.
Yeah, I don't say Robin as a way of putting him down at all.
Right.
Yeah. So without any further ado, let's get to our conversation with Jay Bilas about Kon Kneuppel and his draft prospects.
All right, Jay, we move on in our draft series to Kon Kneuppel. And of course, we start out with the obvious question. We love this game this year. There's a lot to be excited about him at the next level. But what is the NBA particularly excited about seeing from Kon Kneuppel?
I think Kneuppel is coveted because he's a fantastic shooter, and he shoots it off the catch. He can drive it and play off 2 feet and make plays in the lane. He's got a great shot fake. He gets a ton of loose balls. He's tough. I think the biggest question mark about Kon is as an isolation defender. They're gonna put him on an island and kind of go after him, and is he gonna be able to move his feet and stay in front of ultra quick, ultra athletic wings? Is that the lead story, his greatest strength? No. But there are a number of guys that have played 15 years in the league that haven't been great lockdown defenders because they're so good offensively. But he can hang defensively, and I don't think that's going to be a deterrent for anyone. He's got a ton of ability, and competitively, like it's almost too bad in a way that he played with Cooper Flagg, because Flagg took so much of the headlines about being an unbelievable competitor, which he is. But it kind of, when you're spending so much time talking about that, it was probably hard for schleps like me to go, and Kon Kneuppel is just as good of a competitor, because I think he is. I think he's in that same ballpark. He's not as gifted athletically as Cooper Flagg is, but he's really gifted, and he's a better shooter. He can really stretch it. He passes well. He's just not quite the playmaker that Flagg is, but he's legit. And I think he's one of those guys. Like, I think it'll be interesting. Like, I think Kaman Malawach is a little bit undervalued in some of these things I see and read. And I think I would not be surprised to see Kneuppel go top 5. That by the 6th pick he's gone. That's how good of a shooter he is, and how he competes, and how he finds a way to get things done. That's a huge. I mean, he's a coveted player in this draft.
Hey, Jay, do you think it hurt or helped Kon Kneuppel's stock to play with Cooper Flagg? Because on the one hand, he wasn't maybe able to show everything that he had because Cooper was showing so much. But on the other hand, teams got to see what he is like as sort of the number 2 to an alpha number 1. That's a really valuable thing in the NBA. If you can get a guy who can be the number 2 guy on your team in the top 5 in the draft, you're like, yeah, that's a pretty good thing to get, isn't it?
Well, yeah, like I think it's valuable anywhere. I mean, to your point, but yeah, it is valuable in the NBA. Like there aren't that many guys that are going to go into the NBA and be the leading scorer for a playoff team. There just aren't that many, and the league has plenty of them now, but there aren't that many that are going to go out of a particular draft and all of a sudden they're going to blossom into that. But there are times when you say, okay, well, I didn't think that way about Jalen Brunson when he came out. I mean, I didn't stamp my feet when Jalen Brunson wasn't taken in the lottery. That surprised me. I think it surprised Jay Wright. But that those kind of things can happen and do happen. But Kon, like, I think to your question, I think it helped him playing with Cooper Flagg. But there were games when he took over the game, when he was the lead guy.
ACC tournament, yeah.
You name it, when Flagg was hurt. Yeah. And now that's a great point. Like when he was expected to do it and had to do it for Duke to win the ACC tournament championship, he did. And then in other games, when attention was going to Flagg, he stepped forward and had unbelievable performances as a freshman. Like, he didn't play like a freshman. And I think when he was coming out of high school, I think a lot of people thought Liam McNeely was the better player, or the better prospect, I should say. And then after this season, I don't think that anybody I know would take McNeely over Kon Kneuppel right now. And who knows, that could change in 5 years, change next year. It's not an exact science, as we have all proven over the years.
When we look at Kon Kneuppel's game, we talked a lot about what excites them. And I want to focus on one particular aspect of the things maybe to improve, and that would be his speed. Obviously, it wasn't something to worry about this year at Duke, but the NBA is usually considered a faster type of game. Do you think that's going to be something that he needs to work on? Obviously, you can't teach speed, but does he have to get quicker, faster in the NBA to survive?
To survive, no. To thrive at the level that I think he wants to, yeah. I mean, and he will. He can improve his reactions, and he can improve his speed a little bit and his quickness. Not, you're not going to go from 0 to 60. Nobody's suggesting that. But really, what you want him to be able to do is to guard a couple of dribbles against these super athletic wings, so he's not a blow by defender where he's put in to help right away. And I don't think that's going to be the case. But at the same time, nobody's arguing that he's going to go in and be NBA all defensive team. That's not who he has shown to be thus far. But his offensive attributes are so good that I don't think you're as concerned about, well, he's not, because it's not like Jalen Brunson, who we mentioned a little while ago, is the best defender on the planet. Those things are important, but he had an impact defensively in college. It's just not, it just sort of one-on-one defense is not the lead story with him. But you don't want to make it sound like he's out there getting blown by. He's not.
All right. I got a Kon Kneuppel comparison question for you. I've seen some folks out there trying to find, hey, he's another blank. And I should start by saying I don't really love those kind of things because he's the first Kon Kneuppel and he's going to do things differently than everyone else. But I've heard some folks sort of bring up the name of Austin Reeves, who's a really, really nice NBA player, averaged 20 points per game this year for the Lakers, he's their secondary creator. The same way, we've talked about the role that Kon kind of played next to Cooper's, the role that Austin Reeves plays next to LeBron James. Do you like that comparison for Kon? Is that about what you think he's going to be?
I mean, I think it's fair. Absolutely. Because when Austin Reeves was in college, he started out his career at Wichita State, and he was thought of primarily as a shooter, and that was a limiting thing. And I know that pissed him off when he was called that. It's amazing how guys that can't shoot would love to be called shooters, and shooters don't like being called shooters. But it's not a limiting thing. It was just kind of, he called him a shooter because that was the lead story with him as his best attribute. But he also proved, that he could be a playmaker, and he's tough. I think he's gotten better and better over the years since he wound up at Oklahoma and then into the NBA. And I think the same's probably true of Kon. But Kon's ahead of in my view, is ahead of where Austin Reeves was at that age. And that's sort of the way I try to look at it. Like say, take just for an example, take VJ Edgecombe of Baylor, who I think will probably be the third or the fourth pick, is my guess. I compare him favorably to Victor Oladipo or Dwayne Wade when they were freshmen, sophomores. Not what they became in the NBA. I'm not saying that now, but if you compare them as 19-year-olds, Edgecombe compares really favorably. Now, will he reach that level? That's anybody's judgment. But he's got the ability to do that. And I feel the same way about Kon with that sort of comparison of Austin Reeves. Like, Austin Reeves is better than he is right now, but that may not be the case in 4 or 5 years. Austin's got a little bit of a head start on him. One thing I know, that Austin's a better golfer. So he's got to work on his consistency off the tee. Kon does, if he's going to catch up to Reeves on the golf course.
I feel like we're getting a peek into what Jay Bilas does on weekends here. All right, let's do our over/under game for Kon Kneuppel. I set the number at 5. Does he go 1 to 5, or does he slip outside of the top 5 of the NBA draft? Kon Kneuppel.
This is a tough one. I happen to think he's going to go 5. But
So that's 1 to 5. So there you go.
yeah, I think that's where he's going to go. But you know how it goes. Like a lot's going to, like we said. I think we talked about at one point. I think the draft starts at 3, and then how's Ace Bailey going to be processed by the NBA? He's very, very talented. He's a really tough shot maker. Same thing, VJ Edgecombe. He could go 3. How's Trey Johnson going to compare of Texas to Kon? Like, I think Kon is a better all around player. Trey Johnson can really shoot it, but I think Kon actually may be a better shooter overall. They're both great shooters, but how are those things going to be processed by particular teams? But I've got Kon slated at number 5 as a prospect, and I think it's a high likelihood that's where he goes.
All right, summer is here. More sun, more light, more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And the number one thing that you don't want to be doing all summer, spending hours cooking inside. That is where Factor comes in.
That's right, Jason. Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. With 45 weekly menu options, you could pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. It's easy to savor more this summer. Factor meals pack in the flavor with none of the fuss, so you can get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors.
Man, that sounds really good. Get started, folks, at factormeals.com/DukeBB50 off. Use the code DukeBB50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That code again, DukeBB50 off at factormeals.com/DukeBB50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, factormeals.com/DukeBB50 off.
The Disney Plus Hulu Max bundle. It's the ultimate bundle for an unbelievable price. Plans starting at $16.99 a month. Get it and watch Marvel Television's Ironheart on Disney Plus.
I want to build something iconic.
A new season of The Bear on Hulu.
We can make people happy.
And The Epic, a Minecraft movie on Max.
Anything you can imagine is possible.
The Disney Plus Hulu Max bundle. Plans starting at $16.99 a month. All these and more streaming soon. Terms apply. Visit DisneyPlusHuluMaxBundle.com for details.
America's beverage companies are investing in America. We're American companies, making American products with American workers in America's hometowns. We're local bottlers and manufacturers, operating in all 50 states, employing more than 275,000 Americans in good-paying jobs, delivering for the nation, because we believe in the promise of America and the people who make it great. Learn more at wedeliverforamerica.org. Paid for by the American Beverage Association.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles, fluffy golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
All right, Donald, we're back from the break. Again, our thanks to Jay for a fascinating conversation about Kon Kneuppel. Donald, go ahead and give me your impressions of what Kon is bringing to the table and what the NBA sees here.
Jason, I want to go back to right before the Final Four. I was in, I don't know where you were. I was in a parking lot in Austin, Texas, and we were talking to Kon's mother. And she mentioned the fact that last summer there was a point where there were some people kind of saying like, Con, this guy went in the top 10 of the NBA draft, and he kind of looked and said, I can do that, and put, head to ground and did the work to be in this position that he's in. I think that is what NBA teams love the most, is that this guy is competitive, arguably as competitive as any player we've ever seen. Yes, his teammate was just as competitive. He is a coachable player. He can improve in such a way that, again, last year we were like, oh, this guy, Kon Kneuppel, we're hearing some nice things about him, but, we'll see what happens when fall comes around. And then he stepped into the lineup and never left. He was at times the guy when Cooper Flagg was out, or even when Cooper Flagg was in. There was times where he was cooking enough where Cooper Flagg said, get this man the ball. And that dynamic between those two guys really was incredible to watch. And Kon Kneuppel was a big reason for that. He could shoot well from three. He could take it to the lane. He has the old dad game that can really frustrate an NBA defender. And I just can't wait to see what he can do the next level. And I think the NBA is doing the same thing, Jason, because kind of like Common Model Watch, we talked about his range as being kind of creeping towards the the top 5 of the draft. Kon Kneuppel has been solidly in that discussion for number 3, 4, 5, and 6. He could land at any one of those positions and would not be shocked if a team traded up into that top 5 or 6 because Kon Kneuppel's on the board and they want to get him really quick.
Well, it's funny. I mean, everyone says Dylan Harper's going number 2, but there are some folks who do, statistical analysis and projections and stuff like that who say, who should go number 2? Kon Kneuppel. I think it was somewhere in the Athletic, I believe I was reading yesterday or a couple days ago, and they had like a projection of your stats in the NBA and how that converts into wins above replacement, WAR, and all those other kind of things. And they were like, yeah, Cooper Flagg's clearly number 1, but Kon Kneuppel's clearly number 2. So
yeah, and he played like it.
Yeah, he's not going to go number 2. But yeah, I think he's very much in that mix. Right after that, there are a series of guys there who could all go. And I think what the NBA sees in Kon is, I mean, yes, obviously a guy who can shoot, and the league values shooting so much, but his playmaking and his ability to get like great looks for himself or for others is what has the NBA really intrigued. I mean, Kon uses angles. He uses his own physicality because he is he's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger than a lot of guys in sort of his role. And he just uses those things to get to the right spot, to get a quality shot for himself or a quality shot for a teammate, because you've had to help onto Kon. He's just like crafty, creative, just, unbelievably in the mid range. And the decision making is outstanding. Kon running a pick and roll at Duke with man was a terrifying thing for the opposing team. There was just nothing that you could do to stop it. And the NBA pick and roll is a huge part of the NBA. Kon's going to be playing, as good as man is, Kon's going to be playing with some center who's really great, because NBA is full of really great big men. And his ability to run the pick and roll is it's a problem for opposing teams, because if you hedge onto Kon, then he's going to find the big man. And if you don't hedge enough, he's going to create a space for himself to get a good mid-range shot. It is, that's what he brings to the table. What he maybe doesn't bring to the table is elite quickness and athleticism and burst. And that's why I think people are concerned about his defense. But what I saw from Kon all year was a smart defender, Donald. Teams tried to pick on him. They want to make him prove he can defend at this level. And in college, he absolutely proved it. And I think, he's strong, and he uses his physicality to help out against, quicker guys. And he's smart. He knows how to play team defense, even if he's not, physically suited to being a great one-on-one defender. I think he's going to be successful at defending in the NBA. And if you have a guy that's this smart and creative on offense, and he's even a competent NBA defender, that's just an unbelievably valuable player.
Yeah, I think the quickness thing, and I'm glad that we were able to address that with Jay when we spoke with him. I think the quickness thing, kind of like Jay mentioned, is something that can be not necessarily improved, but you can get around it in the NBA, right? There are some slow guys in the NBA. It's not And I'm not talking about, you know, end to end type of speed. I'm talking about lateral quickness. And there are some guys that just don't have it. But what, like you mentioned, he knows where to be on the floor. He knows how to get to that position before the ball handler does. He also knows how to get in offense as well. That pick and roll doesn't happen if you don't have a little bit of quickness and, again, figure out a way to get to your spot. The fact that 75% of the time you had a pick and roll involving Kon Kneuppel, it ended up in 2 or 3 points. Like that's a ratio that any NBA team would want, because that is indicative of the fact that he's getting to a spot, he's reading angles, he's able to make the pass, or he's able to take that jumper. And in the worst case scenario, he's getting fouled and he's going to the line where he was 92% from the line. So again, almost an automatic 2 points and sometimes 3 when he has the ball and a pick and roll is happening. I think the defensive part is the one thing that we want to wait and see how he does in the NBA, because initially there are going to be some welcome to the NBA moments for him on defense. But
yeah,
again, I think he's going to learn from it, and his competitiveness is going to make it where you saw throughout the year with him and some of the other guys that once a mistake happened, it rarely happened again, because they learned from it and they understood the next time I'm in this situation, here's what I need to do. And even if that was in the middle of a game, later on in that game, that same particular play would happen, and he was more ready for it. And he was able to make the play instead of the play making him. So I really like that part. And again, I think NBA scouts have loved the fact that this guy is coachable, competitive, and has a willingness to get better every single day. Forget Kaizen, right? For a minute, this guy wanted to get better before Kaizen was ever introduced to Duke.
Yep.
And you could see how great a player he became from, again, this time last summer, when most people outside of you and I and some of the people in the community did not know his name and how to say it properly. Everyone knows how to say Kon Kneuppel now. And that's because of his meteoric rise to stardom.
All right, let's play our little game. 1 through 5. Does Kon go in the top 5, or does he go 6th or beyond? What do you think, my friend?
I am going to say this one probably might be the most difficult one, because I could see him going 6, and that technically is beyond.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 1 through 5. I'm just going to say it, 1 through 5. I also think he's earned that. And I think that the way that things have been going right now, and again, the mock drafts have been like 3 to 6. So they're really messing with our over under here. But I'm going to go 1 through 5. And I think that by 5, Kon Kneuppel's off the board.
I agree with you. I think that by 5, he's off the board. I will say that if Ace Bailey wasn't just a weirdo who has refused to do workouts for a bunch of different teams, it's almost like Ace Bailey, like someone at like 6 or 7 or 8 or so has said to him, we're going to take you. And Ace Bailey's like, yeah, I want to go there. I don't want to go higher than that. And so he's like refusing to work out for the Sixers. And it's very strange. If Ace Bailey wasn't being a weirdo, I think that Ace Bailey's potential would potentially knock Kon Kneuppel out of the top 5. But no, I think Kon will go in the top 5. And I should add this. Speaking of potential, a lot of these guys, like Ace Bailey, like VJ Edgecombe, like several other guys who are being considered here in the lottery, are not being picked because they are considered to be guys who will immediately have a huge impact on the league. Not to say they aren't going to be really, really good players, but a lot of them are going to be picked in the top 5, 7, 10 because of potential. And that potential is usually tied to their athleticism. And we're talking about guys who are just elite run, jump, explosive players. Kon Kneuppel, God love him, just doesn't have those kind of gifts. The fact that he is even being considered for like the 3rd, 4th, 5th pick without having that sort of huge potential label attached to him. He's just a freshman, but he's not a freshman who's being picked because you go, oh, I see the massive growth that this guy's going to get as he ties his explosion into his skills. He's being picked in the top 5-ish because his skills are already there, even though he's only a freshman. It's almost unheard of. And I think that's why Kon is going to be the same way he surprised everyone, even Duke fans, with how well he played at Duke. he's going to surprise everyone in the NBA, I think, with how effective he is at that level, because he's not a guy who you're like, oh, I can see what he's going to grow into. He's a guy who's already grown into it, even though he's still really young. And by the way, that doesn't mean he's not going to get better. He's going to get a lot better. This is a guy who's got, I think this guy's a future all-star for sure, in my mind.
The one thing that you should take away from Kon Kneuppel is that he is the one guy in this draft that has fought the size curse. Remember, we listed him at 6'7" all year, and right before the NBA Combine, he was on. I think it was on J-Man. He was like, he's like, "Say, bro, I'm not 6'7". Like, I'm not 6'6". Like, I might be 6'5". And he measured at what, like 6'5", and in some fraction. And his arms weren't as long, and everybody's like, "Oh man, see now he's gone from a 3 that can play the 4 to a 2 who might be able to play the 3," and that has not shaken his stock. His stock has only gone up since him admitting that he might be a couple inches shorter than Duke put him out to be. So again, like the fact that he's able to overcome that lets me know that NBA teams are not worried at all about his actual size or his frame or his reach. They are just worried about, can this man play ball, and Kon Kneuppel plays ball very well.
By the way, he was sick. He wasn't able to compete in all the NBA Combine activities, and he made it up like a couple weeks ago, well after the Combine, so it didn't get as much attention. But some of his scores, some of his athletic scores, like his lane agility kind of stuff,
like the shuttle runs and stuff,
shuttle runs, that kind of stuff, were really, really good. Now, like not like the best in the Combine, but not far off. He is far more quick and athletic and the such than people probably think.
He just wanted the numbers. He just wanted this. Oh, that guy did what? Okay, I could probably do that. Just give me a couple weeks, and then was able to nail it.
Exactly. All right, so we're going to move on from Kon Kneuppel. There's a little bit of stuff. Let's get to the to next year's Duke team, because we are still very, very interested in how these freshmen, how the newcomers are adjusting to being on campus, because all the guys are there. And just the Duke social media team is like number one. If there was a draft for social media teams, they'd go first. They've been putting out the content lately, some really great photos and little snippets of video. It's all edited, people. I ain't never seen nobody miss a shot in any of these videos. So I'm not sure how much you can tell. But Donald, we did get some what they're calling like introduction videos to some of the guys on the team. And by the way, not just the newcomers. We got introductory videos on Isaiah Evans and Darren Harris, in addition to several of the new guys. And it's exciting stuff. I mean, I think part of it is you don't see anybody do anything bad, but a lot of it looks really, really good. Did you have anything you saw that you really loved?
Yeah. Not once did anybody hit the rim. Like you can hear a lot of stuff in that video. You cannot hear ball hit rim. So if they can do that all year, we're in a pretty good spot here. I wonder if they're doing the Steph Curry drills, where Steph Curry says if it hits the rim, it's a miss for him. So he does the punishment because he's going to make almost everything that he shoots anyway. So he needs to add more challenge to him. But no, I think these videos, again, it was a longer video that they released about the first day of practice. So all these clips are literally from the first off-season official workout that they've had. And they kind of splice these up into individual videos for some of these guys. And I like the fact that, one, they're doing this because despite it's funny, despite the fact that we have more guys coming back, it feels like this team is newer than last year's team in a way. So a lot of these guys, you kind of have to introduce in a way to them. Even Darren Harris, the fact that he said, I'm glad that I have a summer to work on things, because last year, as we recall, he did not, because he had the broken hand. And so I really like the fact that he started off with, I'm glad I have a summer. This is great. And the fact that he's, excited about working with the guys throughout the summer. Again, all these guys have that energy in them, and it makes me motivated to want to get out there this summer and work on my own game. But that's what this is about, introducing these guys one by one to the masses, so that when fall practice hits, we know who these guys are, and we know we have our rooting interest. And as we'll talk about, I think later on, I think soon, we're going to talk about the jersey numbers so that we can write them down and remember who our favorite jersey number is.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Darren Harris, there was a video they released of him and Isaiah Evans, like almost alternating shooting. from three, and it was not stationary. This was all like, run to a spot and you catch a pass there and take the shot. And Slim and Darren like hit eight in a row or something like that. I didn't count exactly how many it was, but they went for it. It was a good like 45, 50 minute long video with zero misses, and there was no edits in there. That was very exciting to see. It looks to me like both Isaiah Evans and Darren Harris, they just look a little bit bulked up, a little more solid, a little more defined. Especially Darren Harris, who, I don't want to say, I don't want to use the F word. He wasn't fat by any stretch of the imagination, but he does look like he trimmed out a bit, and there's a little more muscle definition. And in the case of Isaiah Evans, the definition makes him a little bit bigger. So both those guys, I'm really, no one's talking about Darren Harris. It's like everyone's just decided he's way back in the rotation. I don't know. I can't decide, but God, that guy has potential to just explode this season.
Well, I mean, look, Isaiah Evans, he bulked up because he was in the draft process and he knew he needed to get bigger to showcase himself to NBA scouts. So there's the reason why he's looks a little bit fulled out. And then you have Darren Harris, who, as we mentioned, like did not have an off season last year. He didn't get a chance to really get into the process of working out and all that because of his hand. And then when he came back, the season was started. And so you're kind of in the, you're not necessarily working to get definition on your frame. You're just working to recover from these games and be ready to play at a moment's notice. And so he kind of went through the season doing that. So now that he's had a couple of months to focus on himself, I think that is where you see a lot of the work and the gains that he is into. And I think, Jason, I think we have a long summer when it comes to rotation. I'm not counting out Darren Harris in any of that because, again, let's see what he can do with this summer. If he can make it where he becomes an integral part of the rotation, or other guys that we may not have talked about step up. That's how the summer works, and I think that's the great part is once the summer is done, these guys will be in a position to really fight for those minutes that they all crave. There's 13 guys who all want to play, and there's going to be some nights where only 7, maybe 8 get that opportunity. They're going to be fighting for those minutes, and I think the idea of them becoming better as a unit and everybody being healthy enough to do it, that's really going to help this team grow as a team, and also I think for the coaching staff, be able to rely on any one of these guys at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I want to talk about a few of the newcomers now, just really quickly. First of all, Duke had like a combine kind of thing. They said that they put the players through the same combine that the NBA does because they want, Duke is very much about preparing people for the next level, and they want the guys on the team to sort of understand and get experience at exactly what they're going to face if they happen to get into the NBA draft at some point. And the thing about that combine was Cameron Boozer at one point, they showed him doing his max vertical leap. And Donald, I swear, maybe it was the angle. I don't know, but it looked like it was a straight on angle. Looked like his head was at the rim. I think, Cam has this reputation of being a guy who is just super skilled and has a big body, way more, skills in that size and how that fits together in a way that makes him so unstoppable and so productive. But the dude's an athlete also, like an elite run jump athlete. You just don't get that kind of complete package of super skilled, super athletic, ideal body, strong frame. I mean, this is why Cameron Boozer is widely considered like one of the most productive high school basketball players of all time, and why everyone is saying, there are a lot of freshmen who come to college and they're, big explosive players on the college scene and they impact the game in a big, big way. But there are folks who say that you don't understand. Cam Boozer, like in terms of the stats, he's got, the number of rebounds he's going to grab, the way you're going to run the game through him, and he's going to get assists, and the scoring numbers are going to some extent dwarf what other college freshmen do, because Cam's just whole game is designed around being productive. I'm so looking forward to it, and just getting that little glimpse of him with his head at the rim. I was just like, oh my God, this guy's going to be unbelievable.
Now, that angle did not tell us if it was the head or the hair, because that's a 3 inch
That's true.
difference.
You're right.
So we're gonna need more research, everyone. If you know if it was the head or the hair, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know if you have the Zapruder film coverage of that. But I think also, Jason, this is also what goes to show about the weight program and the workout programs that they have. He did all that, and when you look at Cameron Boozer, he's not super chiseled. Like I know we're gonna be looking at like a Sion James type of dude. We're very lucky to have a Sion James, to kind of that kind of chiseled kind of muscle. Shout out Caleb Foster. He looks like he is gotten stronger over the last couple of months too.
Oh, bad. Yeah.
And so that is, again, a couple of months, but that's a couple of months that the current players had that these freshmen have not, because they didn't arrive on campus until a few weeks ago. Now they're going to be getting a gym. They're going to be learning how to get stronger in the way to prepare themselves for the NBA and for college ball. And I fear everyone who has to line up against Cameron Boozer this year, because he already was destroying cats, and he has not gotten a full summer in the gym at the college level. I really fear for people's bodies. I fear for the weight, the media, the training rooms of those opponents after the game. I fear for the amount of ice that they're going to have to purchase, because that man is going to be a bruiser inside. And the fact that he's going to be able to get to his spot, and he's going to be strong enough to go through the contact that we know he's going to take on a night in and night out basis, that's what I'm looking forward to, and how he produces through that, because I have no doubt that he's going to. But the idea that he also can do that and pass, take a guy out and hit the occasional three, get his teammates involved. This is, again, kind of like Cooper Flagg. At least with Cooper, we have learned that we need to retrain our brain about what a superstar athlete looks like and how they produce on the floor. This is going to be another example. He's not going to be doing, 40 and 20. He could, but he's not going to do that every game. But we'll see a lot of double doubles. Like, think Vernon Carey Jr. type of numbers with the additional passing and the blocking and stuff like that. We're going to see a stat stuffer. And more importantly, as you mentioned, we're going to see a lot of wins, because this guy loves to win. He's only been winning his entire career, and I don't think he wants to stop doing that now. So I'm really looking forward to watching that development.
All right, two other guys. We're going to wrap it up here in a second, but two other guys who I watched the video, the highly edited video, and I just had a couple comments on them. First one is Dame Sarr, who, by the way, I heard the coaches calling him Dame. I don't know whether it's Dame or Dama. I'm going to stick with Dama because it sounds to me like that's how he has pronounced it in the past. So I'll go with Dame Sarr.
The coaches can call it whatever they want, because they just like, Common. They really didn't know how to do Common, so they just went with Man for the whole season. Maybe Dame is a coach nickname that they're gonna use for him. But in any case, we're gonna call him what he calls him, what his mama calls him, which is Dama.
Yeah, but what I saw from the little highlights I watched was just so much length and athleticism that just jumps off the page. Obviously, he's tremendously skilled. I mean, this is a guy who is raining three-pointers down in EuroLeague, in one of the top divisions in all of European basketball. A guy who is productive at a level that is higher than, and I want to be clear, top EuroLeague, higher than college basketball. That is more competitive and better players than college basketball. And he was effective at that level. And then to just see the athleticism, it just jumped off the screen at me when I watched the video of Dame Sarr. And then the other guy I wanted to mention was Sebastian Wilkins, who he looks very smooth, very confident shooting the ball from all over the place. But I wanted to point out, I saw on his video, he was taking three-pointers, and this is going to seem like a little thing, but there was a little like dip at the beginning of his shot, sort of the way, he catches the ball and gets set to shoot for a three-pointer. He brings the ball really low at the very start of his shooting motion. Now it's a fluid motion. It's repeatable. All the things you want in a good three-point shooter are there. But I worry that this really noticeable dip at the start of his three-point shooting motion makes him a little bit slower to get that shot off than he should be. and it could allow guys to close out on him and bother his shot a little bit more. Ideally, like a great 3-point shooter would start higher. You want to be able to start higher and therefore get the ball up over your head and get that shot off quicker. I'm not saying that this is something, like a fatal flaw or something like that. Also, I'm not clear on how much Duke is going to want or need Sebastian Wilkins to be taking corner threes in this upcoming season. He feels like a guy who may be more of a multi-year player versus, asking him to do a lot in his first year. But I just did want to note, my first time really looking at him in a Duke uniform, I went, I'm not thrilled with the way that shot begins, because ideally your shot should begin higher up and a little bit quicker than what I saw from him.
I mean, I'm going to put a question to you that you have not heard yet.
Go ahead.
Now, last year, the one thing that we were worried about when we were looking at these summer practices was how low the ball came for Kamen Malwash before he made his move on offense.
Yes, true.
And guess who entered to help him with it? One Derek Lively, who was in that similar position, and he's like, hey, here's how you got to hold the ball and be strong at the next level. And so my question to you is, what member of the Brotherhood would you like to come back this summer to help Sebastian Wilkins with that dip in his shot before it goes up? Because I think there's a lot of options here of guys that can help him with it.
I'll tell you who the guy, Seth Curry.
Boom. That's exactly who I had in my mind, because he started when he was at Liberty. He had that same hitch in his shot. And of course, everyone's like, well, he's got to have the hitch. Like, Steph Curry also has had a slight hitch in the early part, and he just kind of worked his way out of it. But the fact that Seth Curry was able to really move his hand up, and how great a leap in shooting he had at Duke, was the perfect person, Jason. So I don't know if you read my mind, but that's what I was trying to lead you with that. Well,
question. I was like, Jared McCain, Gary Trent. There are a number of guys. Hell, Jason Tatum, although Tatum obviously is injured, is not going to be doing any of that kind of stuff right now. There are a lot of guys from Duke who are great 3-point shooters at the next level. But as I was thinking in my head, as you were asking the question, I went, wait a second. The guy who I picture who catches the ball high, keeps it high, and gets off his shot lightning fast, I was like, Seth Curry. It runs in the family.
The other person that I would have done, but he's ineligible right now because he's a coach, is JJ Redick. Because JJ Redick would also catch the ball. And in one fluid motion, it was gone. It was released quick, but also he kept the ball in the air above his eyebrows so that he always knew where the basket was when he caught it and shot it. But of course, he's the Lakers coach, so that would be tampering. So we're not going to ask him to do that. Enter Seth Curry, who is not a coach and is able to do that.
All right, before we go, we got one last thing. Donald, tell us a little bit about what's going on with the women.
Well, the women are going to Paris, and I'm very, very jealous and excited for them. They are opening the season against Baylor in this tournament. It's an invitational that they do every year, where a couple of teams from women's college basketball open the season in Paris. And last couple years has been South Carolina has been over there. This year, it's Duke versus Baylor, which, first of all, again, Kara Lawson and John Shire must talk about their schedule and try to one up the other on their non-conference portion of their schedule, because this is a monster game to start the season with. Also, Jason, there are a couple questions that you and other people have asked. Is there a flight to Paris for me?
All right, yes, so wait. I want set up the dates so everyone understands what you're looking at here.
I will tell you. There is a flight to Paris that could probably get me in on November 2nd. The Duke women play in Paris on November 3rd. And then in the Dick Vitale Invitational, the Duke men, as we know, open the season against Texas the very next night on November 4th. Now, is there a flight to Paris for me? Yes, there is. I checked. Is there a flight that takes me from Paris to Charlotte on November 4th? Yes, there is. Is there a flight that can get me from Paris to Charlotte in time for me to do the international Duke double? It's possible. So we're going to have to wait and see if I can actually pull this off, because then I have to go back up north for a wedding, for my cousin's wedding that following weekend. But this would be, these two games to open up the season, Duke women in Paris against Baylor, Duke men in Charlotte against Texas, and the Dickie Vitale Invitational. That's a monster way to start the season. Everyone should be getting excited about the women. And I think also, Jason, point to note that the ACC SEC Challenge, the Duke women will be facing LSU in Cameron. So ladies and gentlemen, like there is
pretty elite opponent there.
There are some elite opponents here. I think they're also playing South Carolina again this year. So man, like this is going to be a loaded calendar of November, December of top quality games for both the men and women. I am super excited.
Yeah, is it November yet? Can we fast forward the calendar a little bit?
Let's go because we can get past the summer. It won't be 100 degrees outside, and we'll have basketball to watch.
Yeah, but on the other hand, the summer's so fun as you get the little pieces of intel and you start to learn all about it, you know?
This is true. Yeah.
It's anticipation.
The journey begins now that we always talk about.
Exactly. With that, we're going to wrap it up here on the latest edition of the Duke Basketball Roundup. He is Donald. I am Jason. NBA draft coming at you in just a couple days. By the way, before the draft, we're going to have our episode about Cooper Flagg and his draft prospects. Hear what Jay Bilas, hear what Jason Evans, hear what Donald Wine have to say about Cooper Flagg and the number 1 pick. All that's coming up. But until then, here's the Duke Band playing us out and taking us home.